don't even.
I have an immediate bone to pick. Actually, no, exactly.
Oh my God.
I have a bone I want to pick immediately.
Okay.
I already know.
Okay.
It's not about you.
Excellent.
That's the good news. Yeah, that's the really, really good news. Okay. In all of the technological advancements that mankind has made over the last, I'm just going to even say 20 years. Forget about the last 100 years. Forget about any of that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Like we're not going back to the wheel.
No, we're
Yeah.
going back, honestly, 15. Can I just say, is there a technology that has not improved a single % like Bluetooth? Bluetooth is the exact same today as when Bluetooth was first introduced. And there are just overwhelming problems with
There are
Bluetooth.
serious problems with Bluetooth. I'm going to tell you one technology. Seriously, this is real.
Help me.
One technology that has evolved even
Okay, wow.
worse.
All right, I'm gonna
Okay,
write it
you
down.
ready? Are
Yeah.
you ready? Conference room tech.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
That's
So here's the thing. Here's the biggest difference, right? The difference, like Bluetooth, you're right, has exactly stayed the same. It
Yeah.
sucks as much as it did. It's as good as it
Yeah.
was.
Oh,
It's
I love
identical.
yes.
But conference room technology, you know what these fuckers have done? Sorry, these guys have done.
You're allowed to cuss.
I'm
You're allowed
sorry.
to cuss.
Okay, you're right.
I don't
You're
know
right.
if you want to use okay.
Yeah, that's all. That's
90
stiff.
seconds.
That's
Yeah,
stiff.
yeah.
Sorry. But do you know what these people have done? Conference room tech. They've made amazing progress, but it works as little
Yeah,
as it did
yeah,
20 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah.
And nobody knows what the hell
Yeah,
they're doing
yeah,
with it.
Yeah.
No company you ever walk into, they're like, oh, hey, you want to set up perfectly in my conference room?
Yeah.
Come on in.
You're so
I've got
right.
it totally figured out.
Right.
I was just in front of a group of 50 people in a huge organization with a massive conference room that is worth bazillions of dollars. And we spent 45 minutes
Oh
trying to get my
God.
goddamn presentation
Oh my
on a
God.
screen.
Oh my God.
So Bluetooth and that.
That I love that. I love that you had that experience today.
Today.
Yeah, I love that. I love that that's top of mind. Like
Yeah,
I could
yeah,
barely
yeah.
get the words out. You're like, no. I got one.
Because we were all sitting there like, it's just an HDMI cable, right? And you plug it into and my computer's like, I want to work, and the
Yeah,
projector's
yeah,
like,
right.
not doing it.
Right. And again, this is where you're a better man than I, because you're like, my computer wanted to work. If I was sitting in that situation, I'd be like, it's my computer's fault. This is somehow all of my fault. Like, it is my computer, this whole $1 billion conference room, and it's me that can't make my presentation work. So I'm glad it was you.
I was like, bring in your tech people.
Yeah, right.
This is not my
Yeah,
problem.
Yeah, right. I love that.
I sat back,
Yeah.
crossed my arms,
Yeah.
was like, no.
Yeah, lit a cigar with $100 bill. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Time is money, babe.
Yeah, right. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right,
Welcome to the Well Built series.
Welcome.
Right? The Well Built podcast. I think we're officially making a move. We're making a transition. So when Matt and I first started doing this, we were piloting and we were saying to ourselves, hey, we're going to try this out. We hope it doesn't suck. And we're going to do it under the Morning Huddle logo and play it that way, because the Morning Huddle is an established podcast with thousands of listeners and all that kind of stuff. And so we said, hey, this is going to be the Well Built series of the Morning Huddle. You know what the truth is? This is its own show.
Yeah.
And so this is the Well Built podcast. Welcome to the Well Built podcast.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here.
This is episode 10.
Yeah, episode 10.
So I think that's about right. You do a handful of episodes.
We got our feet under us.
You talk to the market talks to you. You get a good sense of whether it's good. And I don't know if it's any good, Matt, but I like doing it a lot. And people who are telling us things say they love it.
Yep.
But I'm guessing that people who hate it aren't like,
Yeah, right. Dude, they hate the podcast.
Hey, Prink.
Yeah, right.
What you're doing there is just horrible.
Yeah, right. No, very true.
So there might be some of those reactions going on out there, and for those folks, I'm sure they're not tuning in. But for those of you who are hearing this, we appreciate the positive feedback and welcome additional feedback as we go to make this thing suck less and less every day.
Yeah, I think that's well put.
So what are we talking about today, man? Well, you know what? How are you? We got to check in. The format, guys, is we check in, we talk about something that'll help to educate, then we fight, and then we talk about what we're reading. We call it a show, and it's hard and fast.
Yep.
Rough
about
hour.
About an hour.
Roughly an hour we are allowed to swear, which I've already exercised that right. Felt good
for you. Yeah.
Was liberating.
Yeah.
I feel very guilty.
Yeah. I love that after you called them fuckers, you called them people. You're like, these people. But read fuckers. Sorry for anybody with kids in the car.
Yeah. All right, sorry. We're also not allowed to do any complicated math in our head.
Not allowed for even a second. Nope. And then, I don't even want to think about that. Let's move on, Pat. Let's sweep that under the rug.
I don't even know what number we're on.
Yeah, right. Good point.
Wait, I'm skipping it.
Right. After 10, I might have to start saying, I don't know what podcast number we're on. So it's still
what other rules do we have, man?
Next big one, no eating dinner prior to the show.
We actually got an email about that. Somebody was like, why does that rule exist? And I'm like, look, man. And you're just gonna have to go back to like episode 3 or 4 and figure it out.
Yes.
But there's a damn good reason, and Matt violated the rule immediately.
I didn't. I violated it before it was a rule. So let's just get that out on the table. I did propose the rule and then almost break it, but it's semantics. Again, let's sweep that one under the rug.
This is not how I remember it.
Yeah.
But it's on tape.
It's on tape. You'd have to.
And rule number 5.
Rule number 5 is no cross-generational idioms, which I'm glad that we wrote that one down in our document because I wouldn't have remembered that one. Yeah. So we'll see if that one sticks. But
I'm wondering if somebody's messing with us. Like they got into our doc and they were like, "Here's a rule."
So no cross-generational idioms. We'll have to. I don't know. We'll tell you if we accidentally do one, and then we'll see if we can spot it.
I know I got in trouble for BD energy.
That's all.
I got in trouble for BD energy.
You did, and you were talking about a Rolodex in the same breath or something. I don't know. We'll have to go back.
We're gonna have to check it out. Somebody, if you remember, would you let us know?
That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Really
so, how are you?
I'm doing really, really good. One of the things that's really nice about this podcast is that. And I think working here and all that stuff in general is like I was looking forward to this tonight.
Yeah, me too.
This is like less of a work thing, and I think I'll just share this because it's true and it reminds me of it. Like one of the things that we've talked about is like a really nice thing in our relationship and all of that is like when I see your name pop up on my phone, even if it's after 5 o'clock, I'm like, oh, awesome, let's talk. And that's a really good feeling because I've definitely had bosses in the past that were the opposite, like. Oh no, it's after 5 o'clock and I'm getting a phone call. I'm in trouble. So I feel really happy, was really excited for tonight. And I think just really happy in general that when we get to do stuff like this, it's just fun.
Nice, man. Yeah.
How about you? How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well, man. I think, I was asked I did the morning huddle this morning and I was asked on the morning huddle, Stacy said, so how was 2024 for you? And I could like honestly say we did like every single thing we said we were going to do, not just from a metric standpoint, but from like a, getting stuff done, working on the business. That doesn't mean we don't have a bazillion things left to do because we do. I mean, but I definitely feel like we're in a very good spot to jump and do exactly what we say we're going to do in 2025. So we just had our internal company planning session on Friday, and the good vibes and the camaraderie and the sense of commitment and collaboration that comes from that is really, really inspiring for me. And so I'm riding that good mojo, man.
Yeah.
And looking forward to the days when like maybe I'm not the one running that session. I look forward to that.
Yeah.
And maybe hiring a consultant.
Yeah.
Or something like that to do it. So we'll get that done someday.
Yeah. For sure. I have no doubt about that.
So today's topic, we're going to talk about what to do when you screw up.
Ever screwed up?
Not personally, but I've heard about people who have.
Know a guy?
Yeah, I know a guy, and I've been around a couple screw ups.
Yeah.
No, but of course, I screw up all the time. I'm pretty sure I screw up every day, several times a day. If I'm being totally honest with myself, and so I think this is a great topic for discussion because it's universal. Obviously, we speak in the context of the commercial construction industry and what we see with contractors and owners and the design community and things like that. So we'll deliver it in that context. But what I think is cool about this one is if you're just like, I don't know, I'm checking out this podcast. It's maybe you're just my mom and you're and you're like, I heard he has a podcast. And you're checking this out. I think it'll be useful. I think it'll be useful for everybody. With that in mind. Though again, we will certainly do tiebacks to what we know.
Yeah, no, so true. And whether you're a business owner or an assistant project manager, this is going to be just as applicable.
I think that's what's true too.
Yeah.
And though, just like so many things, the higher up you are in the chain, the more what you do is on stage and sets a tone. And there is no doubt I feel that weight. I was just reflecting on that this morning, like that. I think it's both a sense of pressure and a kind of a gift. I know that sounds kind of well, but there's for you and by you and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Mindsets when it comes to your mindset on life, right? Do things happen to you or for you? And so I think both.
Right.
In this like it's it is a lot of pressure in a leadership role to feel like you actually have to set that example. But in a way, when you know what the right thing to do is, and you know that everybody's waiting for you to do it, it's a sort of a sense of freedom.
Yeah.
That just doing the right thing is, I don't know how to put it. It's like I'm trapped into doing the right thing. I just have to because I'm sitting here. I'm the boss. Like I got to set an example. And I think when you're in a leadership role, and like I say, the higher up you are in leadership, the more important it becomes. But no doubt, if you're a project engineer and you're checking this out and you're a year and a half into your construction career, the same messages are going to apply.
Yeah.
So I wonder, I have an idea in my mind of sort of where to start in this conversation. I'd like to talk about what is happening in your mind when you screw up.
Love it.
Because I think the what to do when you screw up has to be done in context of facing reality of what is going on in your mind when you screw up. So when you've seen it and when you've experienced it, like, when you have screwed up and when you've watched other people screw up, what occurs to you? What do you think like is going on in people's mind when they screw up?
Yeah. Well, maybe I have the answers to the test because we get to train on awesome stuff like this all the time. But I mean, fight or flight is like is the most simple response.
Why does that get triggered in the freaking first place? All you did was make a mistake. Why do you end up in fight or flight?
There's awesome brain science that supports it, and the fun explanation is we grew up as Homo sapiens on the plains of Africa, and we used to see tiger and know tiger equal danger. It eat me. I need to run or fight it. And that part of our brain is called our amygdala, and that's our reptilian brain that evolved sometime when we were more like reptiles than even like the Homo sapiens. And they've done amazing brain studies that even today in our evolved state, that your amygdala reacts faster than I think your frontal cortex and your cerebellum and prefrontal cortex, whatever all of those are. And so the first thing that hits your brain is that most least evolved, most prehistoric part of your brain that hits you and goes, we need to fight or flight.
That's right. And what's crazy is that when we get when we screw up on a PowerPoint presentation,
right,
our brain is like, tiger.
right.
Which is so cool,
right,
and scary and weird, right? But if you can appreciate the explanation that Matt gave through that we've evolved this, strength. Really, it's a gift that allows the part of our brain that is there to protect us from harm, to take control of our brain when our brain recognizes harm. Like, wow, thank you, brain. What a gift. Shame that in the 21st century, our brain has not yet evolved the ability, and I believe it will actually, hundreds of years from now, thousands of years from now, tens of thousands. I don't know enough about how evolution works, but assuming things stay on our modern course, I do believe our brains will develop the ability. They'll evolve the ability to be like, you screwed up on PowerPoint, you're good, and have and not engage your amygdala. But here we are. We're not there yet. You realistically, dude, when you think about it, we're only like a couple hundred years evolved
Absolutely.
from like hunting and gathering. I mean, not. I recognize there was an agricultural revolution 13,000 years ago, right? But there's um, in that interim, the degree of I'll call it food security and physical security has advanced so dramatically in the past couple hundred years. Where with indoor plumbing and HVAC, like just think about building a building in 1940,
Right.
and think about building a building in 2025,
Right.
and the differences are mostly just like all the machines that create comfort,
Right. Yep.
inside that we've built inside of those buildings any damn way. Point is this: in your brain, when you screw up, your brain senses a threat and it engages a very, very base portion of your brain that actually disengages. The first thing it does is it disengages any your ability to rationally process, think, strategize, any of those types of things. And because that's what's going on, what then, once the rational brain, not the rational brain, but once the thinking brain kicks in, okay, and says like, okay, what's the best plan? Usually the first thing we do is we like lie, or we defend ourselves. And you know what's really funny? It's hysterical, actually. I notice it in myself, and when I'm able to be like a Chad anthropologist and look at Chad from over here, as opposed to like living in this very weird skin. Right. When I I'll get the ability to sort of see like, oh, weird, he's actually making it worse. He's making it worse. Why is he making it worse? And you know what's he's angry, right? Like, I screwed up and now I'm angry, and I'm angry at you and them. And gosh darn everybody. Right? Which is like, it's so weird, and it's so human, and it's so natural. And the trick is, and I'm going to let you walk really through how to do this. The trick is to not indulge in that. The trick is to recognize that that's happening, and to be like, wait, and do because obviously, if we said like, all right, so here's what you ought to do when you screw up, the first thing you do is you look for somebody to blame, and you pin it on them, because let's be honest, any failings make you a loser. That's not real. We all know that. Everybody knows logically, rationally. We all make mistakes. We all screw up. Owning your mistakes. Like, we can make a long list of the stuff. Like, this is not going to be what I'm really trying, and I know you're a master at, really, is to help our audience to understand what they actually need to do in their head to not follow the script of become defensive, get angry, get really embarrassed, go home and drink.
No, it's great. It's great. And that is a common trope, in the construction industry, is to do exactly that. And so I think your question is, like, how do you prevent against that, right?
What do we do to not get into that cycle? What do we actually have to do in our brains to do something that makes us feel really good and that creates much better outcomes when we screw up?
Yeah, that's great. So I think the first thing that's worth noting, and you referenced it in a way, but for anybody that's listening to this, I just want you to think of anyone that you have ever known that they made a mistake or that they screwed something up, who then blamed somebody else for it. Or even someone that you think made a mistake and you're pretty certain of it, don't have proof, and then they blame somebody else or something for it. And I want you to think about your perception of that person after the fact, and how the trust that you lose in them, and the questions that you ask yourself about them. And then I want you to think about the last time somebody that you know screwed up said, I screwed up, and just took it on the chin, or some situation that you thought was somebody's fault and they just took it on the chin and they took responsibility for it. And I say that because there's this really funny thing that I know happens to most people when they make a mistake, which is we think, I should protect myself and I should blame somebody else. I should keep up the ruse that I am perfect with the outside world, instead of admitting that I have faults and deficiencies. And we know deep down that we don't expect that from others, and that we actually appreciate when others say they screw up, but we don't do the same a lot of the time. So I use that as a starting point because I hope that you can look outside of yourself and notice, just as a simple starting point, that it is valuable to admit when you make mistakes, and that you will build more trust by admitting those mistakes.
So it's really cementing and redefining in your own psychology that and you have evidence. Your brain has evidence, guys, if you look around and you pay attention to your lived experience.
Yes.
That in fact, people who own it and who call themselves out and who deal with it are much more respected than those who deflect.
Yes.
You have evidence of this.
Yes.
So that's important.
Yes.
Yep.
That's very important. And then I think a second thing that's important before going into how you can actually respond to it is just also notice the fact that there are times when you have a absolutely full to-do list. You know that you have tons of stuff to do, and you get your boss comes up to you and has another thing that they want you to do. Remember that there are absolutely times where in that situation you have freaked out. You have been like, oh my gosh, I got so much going on and I'm freaking out and there's all this stuff going on, and then you want me to do this and they want me to do that and all this different stuff. And then realize that there are other days where your to-do list has been just as full, maybe even fuller, and your boss came and asked you to do that same thing, and you've reacted like, cool, I'll figure it out.
You're able to roll with it.
And I point that out because our brains are capable of these different things, and sometimes it's environmental or circumstantial or whatever that causes that. But if you ever think, well, I just have so much going on and I screw up, and when I screw up, I freak out and it all goes downhill, whatever. Like, I bet you have screwed up and that you have totally been capable of staying calm in that situation before too.
Yep.
So you are very capable of doing this stuff. So to Chad's point, there is evidence out there for your brain to know that this stuff is possible. Is there anything else you'd add as like a prerequisite to this kind of conversation?
I think it's great. Cool. I think all that's great.
So then I think the third kind of step, well, really the first step and after,
and what do you do?
In what you do, really is the first thing is to take a deep breath. And so this is a very real thing that takes time to get used to. But the more that you spend your time shifting your focus away from the failure that you've made and being able to actually separate yourself from it. And Chad made a very good point. In meditation, they call it like the watcher or the observer. That there are times where you're able to actually like step outside of yourself, look at you being there, and recognize that like I am not just that human body that's sitting there reacting to this situation. This gets a lot easier with practice, but a practice like meditation is awesome because through breath you can start to recognize when you are present and paying attention and your best and normal self versus when you are caught up in stress or a mistake and thinking about lying and all that different kind of stuff. And so that first step being like, take a deep breath is to give yourself time and space. Like that's the first thing that you got to realize. And obviously it depends on the kind of mistake that you just made. It might be a mistake that is in front of people that you have to admit to right now, but I'll kind of talk through, let's say it's something more that you've discovered and that you need to admit later. A next great thing to do after taking a deep breath is like getting up, standing, walking around for a second, stretching, like literally shaking your body a little bit, like doing things to release some of that anxious energy from your body. Because the second that you start going into like nail biting thinking, pushing, like trying to whatever, go crazy over whatever that mistake is, you're going to be pushing yourself down a spiral that is not useful for you or the situation. So the first two are very physiological based steps.
Yeah.
Take a breath, get up and walk around for a
because
second.
you got to, and all you're doing just to maybe take a little bit of the I don't know, hippy dippiness out of the comments that Matt's making, which depending on your generation, you may not have had that reaction.
Yeah.
And if you're me and you're older, you're like, oh God,
we're
breathing and shaking, like, all right. But you understand we're literally trying to release the control of your brain from your amygdala. That's that's literally what you're doing.
Yep.
So that happens by being present and getting space and getting your nervous system in control. That's what you're doing. You're trying to bring your nervous system into some sort of control, because it's very, very difficult, as anybody who's ever been in freak out mode knows. It's very difficult to make good decisions from that place.
Yeah, it's great. I love that. There's a if you call it hippy dippy and any of that, like anybody that's listening, like totally get it and cool and like don't mind it at all. Actually,
Right.
I think it's funny. There's a business owner that I really like who once said to me at a company that he was at before he owned the business, was frustrated about their apprenticeship program and said they were going to get rid of their apprenticeship program. And he said to them, "Oh yeah, an apprenticeship program. The thing that's worked for the last 2,000 years in the building industry. Yeah, we're probably the ones to figure out that that's not a good program to have." and I thought that was hilarious, right? And I'm just saying the same thing. Like, I'm not knocking the people that are thinking that same stuff, but like, yeah, by the way, this is stuff that like people have been doing and thinking about for thousands of years, taking a breath, walking and getting calm. Like, it's a very real thing. So like, if you're against it, cool. I'm just telling you that there's like 6,000 years of like writings all the way back to like the monks, of like doing this stuff.
Seems a little touchy feely to me.
I know. Easy.
Are we doing one of those cross generational? No, it's not an idiom.
Yeah,
we're
we're
okay.
not
We're
yet there.
safe.
Okay. We're so okay. Good call.
But I'm obviously I'm just speaking to my people.
No, I'm glad you do.
And I think not. It just is a story that we might be telling ourselves, that this is hokey. That's all.
Yeah.
And like, no, it's just science.
Yeah.
This is just science. So okay. So now we've done all of that stuff. Now what do we do?
So I think the next step that's really important is like identifying what caused what's going on. And usually that might be like going down to the emotional intelligence level of like, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, I'm anxious.
You got to name your feeling. You got to figure out what's going on.
You got to name it, because as soon as you name it, you take the power out of it.
Yep.
It is fascinating.
And I find when I make mistakes, usually it's I'm afraid, I'm embarrassed. It's usually one of those two sort of core emotions: fear or embarrassment. The anger only comes whenever I feel exposed or under attack. It's fear that is most prevalent. And so it's that threat.
Fear of what?
Retribution, ego damage, reputational damage, i.e. ego damage.
Right.
That's right. Like we care an awful lot, humans, about what other people think.
Yeah.
And we could be like, don't care about what other people think. You're going to care about what other people think. It's not, we could do a whole episode on why that's a thing too. But there's a, while yes, you should care an awful lot more about what you think of yourself than other people, there is also just like a reality to the fact that you are gonna care about what other people think. And so when you start thinking about what does it look and sound like if people start judging me based on this mistake, because I'm judging me based on this mistake, right? That type of stuff.
Yep. No, that's great.
So anyway, but yeah, that's why embarrassment. That's why fear.
Yeah. No, that makes fear of not being good enough is a big one for me, which I think goes into reputation, ego, being liked, and all that stuff. But yeah, if you can identify what that is, Harvard's done studies that emotions will actually move through your body in 90 seconds. We can totally bury them down and like hold on to them for an extended period of time.
That sounds fun.
But we're capable of releasing emotions in 90 seconds from our body.
And emotions are one of this is my favorite thing about emotions. I'm sorry I have to leave this in, but my favorite piece of knowledge about emotions, or my favorite take on emotions to pass along, is this: that there's absolutely nothing you can do to stop yourself from having them. Like, you're gonna have emotions, and you're gonna have negative emotions. You're gonna have those. You can't just be like, just stop feeling that way. Stop being a sissy, type of thing. I've tried. It doesn't work, and you're gonna have those feelings. Bad feelings are useful. They're very useful, but they're useful as a data point, the same as the pain receptors in your hand are useful to tell you when not to touch a hot stove. It's when you feel that negative emotion, whatever that negative emotion is, what is not useful is holding on to it, i.e. keeping your hand on the hot stove. What is useful is that, wow, there's a root of that somewhere. Interesting. That's probably telling me something that I need to change, i.e., I need to take my hand off the damn stove. So there's something in there that it's negative emotions are useful. Don't fight them, but also definitely don't hold on to them. You can allow your body to process them exactly as Matt's talking about. You can move right through those negative emotions, but don't bury the source.
Right.
Don't be like, okay, I'll just pretend like that never happened. Now that it's moved through my body, I can just move on.
Right.
Well, hold on, reflect and say, like, what is there a chance I'm going to be back there again?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
That's great.
Let's get back to making. So when we screw up,
Yep.
and we've got like this basically this world that we're painting where, hey, first thing you got to understand is that you're having a freak out.
Yeah.
When you screw up, you're likely to freak out. If you're likely to freak out, you're likely to become defensive and weird.
Yep.
And all of those things cause all the bad things, deflecting and fighting and, you know, all that stuff. And if we know that what you ultimately need to do, the advice is take ownership. That's really where we're heading.
Yeah, that is.
For us to give you the advice of take ownership, what we're trying to do is create a realistic a template for you to follow so that taking ownership is possible. And it starts with this: what are the stories you're telling yourself? Make sure that your brain understands that you have evidence out there. Taking ownership is a good thing. You actually have more evidence that deflecting is a bad thing and blame is a bad thing. So that's good. Hey, you're feeling all your feelings. First thing, take a big deep breath, recognize you're feeling those feelings, move around, shake your body out, get your thinking brain engaged and get your amygdala out of the center piece. Give your body evidence that you're alive.
Yeah.
You're not going to die. Everything's okay. And now we start getting into okay, I'm going to name what's going on.
Yep.
Pick up from there.
And then it gets much more or much less hippy dippy, much more direct, at this point. But at this point, then get solution oriented, and I think you can take your preferred means for coming up with a solution, but I couldn't recommend more that solution process being more like a back of napkin solution process than like writing your thesis about the thing type of process.
Right.
A 5-minute planning session that just goes on a post-it card of how you're going to overcome a thing is a very powerful thing. Doesn't overcomplicate it and gets you into a really good mindset. And then I'll just close it out, and then I've got I think an important question for you, Chad, after that. But if that's step 4, I think that the preferred next step, if you have the ability based on the mistake, based on what you did, based on the time and space that you have, is to freaking sleep on it. The amount of times that you can get clarity just by sleeping on something that you've made a mistake about and how you're going to approach it and get through it is so powerful. Regardless of if you have that space or not, I think that 5th step after you've gone through is to trust your gut. You've found a solution, you've realized the mistake that you've made, and now you're saying, all right, what do I know I need to do? And our gut is actually usually a very good indicator of what you need to do. It's fascinating. So what I'm wondering in all of that, if those are the 5 steps, I think it's easier said than done. And Chad, I wonder if you want to talk about, like, it's nice to do that with personal mistakes, but sometimes business reputation is on the line, and like client relationship might be on the line. And there's these larger considerations that go into that. It's like, sorry, boss, I trusted my gut, might not be a great response. And so I wonder if you have any advice for other things that you need to think about of how this decision may impact your business and your team and what you do to overcome any of those hurdles.
Yeah, unless you have to make that decision right now, and there are some of those situations where you have to make that decision right now. I strongly advise number 1, a good night's sleep. I cannot tell you the amount of times, and really, so here's I love your process, and I think that's so true. And I reflect on some of the hardest mistakes I've ever made, and some of the scariest feelings I've contended with related to those mistakes. And if I'm being totally honest with myself, I realize as we're talking about this that I think my top priority is how am I going to get to sleep tonight?
Hmm.
I'm not actually, and so here's my point. When I am building my resolution plan, it's really not necessarily the plan that I'm gonna like the back of the napkin. Totally agree, back of the napkin, and it's not really the plan I'm going to follow.
Mm.
It's actually the plan my brain just needs to chill out
Wow.
so I can get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. Wow.
Because I find that the character of problems changes so dramatically in the light of a new day. My viewpoint and my creativity and my problem solving
Mm.
is so dramatically improved
Mm.
in the light of a new day.
Yeah.
And so when at all possible, Matt, I would say trust your gut, do the napkin sketch, and sleep on it.
Mm-hmm.
And trust your gut in the morning.
Yeah.
And what I found is that as I think about scenarios, and I won't process them now because it's like it would be I don't know that I can and protect other people, to be quite honest. I'd have to come up with some, but in all sincerity, the worst ones that I can think of, I did not do what I originally planned to do. It was a version thereof, and there was definitely some good thinking in there. But I often find that when I wake up and I get once I've calmed my mind down enough to get a good night's sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have that night's sleep and I wake up and I look at the same problem. That problem is, if it was red, it's now orange or yellow.
Yeah.
And the action plan that I had, if it was like, well, throw yourself down a flight of stairs in front of everybody to show your self-flagellation, right?
Yeah.
It really takes a huge step back from that, and it's like, it's not as big as I thought this was.
Right.
Holy moly!
Right.
That even as much control as I try to gain back from my amygdala, that it's really, really, really hard to do that. So again, if your problem can wait, sleep on it. The second thing that I would do in a business context is I would have trusted advisors and I would get advice.
Yeah, that's great.
Just and try not to dramatize the situation. Try not to add too much narrative or too much op-ed into the conversation, because the more you tell them not the facts, but your take on the facts,
right.
the more their advice is gonna sound like your advice.
What you want to hear.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I mean to say. And by the way, I'm a master at that.
At what?
Getting people to tell me what I want to hear. Oh my God. Right?
That's so funny.
Oh yeah. And that's a part of why I give that advice to this group, is that, like, just recognize if you're like me and you're an influential person, like you and when I say influential, I mean good at influencing people. I don't mean that anybody gives a shit about me. But if you're good at influencing people, you have to make sure that you're very intentionally not influencing here. You have to be like, here are the facts.
Yeah.
And try to really remove your narrative and then say, like, what would you do, to make it right? At the end of the day, and I think we can probably finish with this unless you have any other items to stack, okay, which is I'm down with, but I live by a principle when it comes to making mistakes, and that is the moment you've made one, come running out and be like, I screwed up.
Yeah.
And bust yourself before anybody else can bust you.
Yeah.
Because if you want to talk about reputational damage, I will tell you, the only thing worse than deflecting, okay, is when people come to you and catch you doing something wrong.
Yeah.
That is reputational damage. It really is. And so this is why I say, like, if you can sleep on it, do. If you can't, just come running out with your arms flailing and say, I messed up. Right?
Yeah.
Own it. Take ownership. And even if you don't have a solution in mind yet, or like whatever else, it's not going to get better with time. And if people find out and you've known, that does make it way worse. So you got to bust yourself.
Yep, you're so right.
People will freak out if tomorrow they're like, what happened?
Yeah.
And you're like, I was going to tell you, right? You know that story.
Yeah.
And they're like, were you? And now not only do they think you're a screw up,
Yep.
they think you're a lying screw up.
Yep. No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, and I love your point about talking to advisors and all of that, and I think just to be clear, like obviously having a good lawyer or business consultant or somebody like that you can call is great. Being able to go to your VP of Ops and explaining to them what happened and being direct and getting their advice on what to do before you go to the client is so powerful.
I genuinely hope for everybody that's listening to this that you have that kind of partnership with your boss.
Yes.
If you don't have that kind of partnership with your boss, you should probably think about telling your boss that. You know, and if you think your boss would fire you for telling him that, go ahead and look for a new job anyway.
Yeah, it's great advice. That's really, really good advice. That's not what this podcast is about, but it's maybe the best advice. Like it really is. It really is.
Yeah. And if you are a boss, make sure that you are creating that kind of safe environment.
Create that environment.
Yeah. Which means when people come to you and they've made a mistake, understand all the stuff that's already going on in their head. You don't need to make them more freaking panicky.
Yeah.
Right. Be steady. Right now, if you got a bunch of bozos who are going around screwing up, and they have no idea that they're screwing up or they don't care, then you may need. I was running a meeting earlier, and I said, the thing is, anger and frustration, when communicated as anger and frustration, is a very, very powerful and risky tool. If you do it on purpose, it can be wielded for good. But I'm talking like once every 10 years kind of stuff. This is like a nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
You can use it for good. The biggest problem is most people are doing it on accident all the goddamn time.
Right.
And they're communicating anger and frustration on accident.
Right.
And it's pouring out and it's creating a bunch of negativity.
Yeah.
If you're going to use it, you got to use it on purpose. And if you use it on purpose, you better be damn sure it's worth it. Because if you overuse it, you will be creating people who hate you.
Yeah.
That may just make it real simple.
Yeah.
They will not like you.
Yeah.
Okay. So any darn way. Should we fight?
Yeah, might as well fight. Let's get angry. Let's get angry.
Let's get into one. This is one of my favorite topics. And that is who ought to be doing the buy-in for general contractors. At a general contractor, who ought to procure subcontractors? Who should do the buy? Should it be procurement? Should it be ops? Should it be estimating? Right? Like what's the XVY here? I think is maybe procurement v other.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, I want to hear your strong opinion first. I really do, and it's not just I want to hear because you've worked with a lot of GCs, a lot of subs. I work for a sub. I got bought by GCs all the time, right? So I have some strong opinions, but from your perspective, like, where is the best place for the buying decision to come from?
Purchasing.
And what does purchasing mean? Like, who's in the purchasing department? What does that mean?
It is a centralized function that is the ultimate accountability for selecting the best fit subcontractor for the situation. Now, in practical application, Matt, what that also means is if you're going to pick the best fit, it means you have to be making this decision not from a just plain old dollars and cents perspective, which means your procurement director, your procurement manager, whatever your title is in that environment, the boss of procurement needs to be fantastic at cross-departmental communication, collaboration, feedback, and ideally your company has systems in place to feed data from the field, up the chain, all the way through the organization so that everyone's voice is considered in the procurement. But at the end of the day, I'll be honest with you, man, the right place to buy, and I subs hate hearing it, but the right place to buy is a centralized procurement department.
And from what, like, I get all of the, you gave reasons, so like I don't want to make it sound like I'm just asking you to re-explain yourself, but like, is there like a why behind that? Like, what do you think the greatest benefit is to the general contractor to purchase centrally?
A consistent experience for the subcontracting community.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So as a general contractor or construction manager, whichever, right? There are nuances, but for general contractor or construction manager, you are, and the best ones will say this in a heartbeat. And if you ignore this, then you're an idiot. Undeniably an idiot. You are nothing without your subs. You are
Yeah.
nothing.
Yep.
Unless you're self-perform, in which case I'm the idiot. Sorry.
Yeah.
But if you are a construction manager or a GC that doesn't self-perform, you're nothing without your subs. And subcontractors, you know how you can piss off a subcontractor more than even managing them poorly, is to procure in an unfair, unpredictable, crazy manner that is varies from person. I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday who said, I told this guy, and he's my buddy, and I said I really need this one, and he texted me later that afternoon. We went in another direction, and he's like, that son of a bitch.
Mm.
Like a kind of situation. And I think,
Mm.
yeah, when you don't know how procurement works, and when you don't understand the rules, and when you're not really, tight to it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think it's about consistency for subcontractor experience, and then ultimately best end product. That's really, at the end of the day, best end product, which means what? Lowest total cost.
Mm.
Lowest total cost, and total cost is not just cost at procurement, it's cost through construction. And if somebody's really smart, and I hope there are more of those out there every day, it's total cost over the lifetime of the building.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and so that then last question on that is, how do you feel about your purchasing managers or purchasing department making relationships with subcontractors?
Very, very. It's required.
Mm.
They need to know these people personally. It should not be dispassionate.
Mm.
It shouldn't be.
So that, I think that's a key difference because as soon as I hear purchasing, I think dispassionate is a great word for it.
Right.
I think there's the centralized thing that we don't know how to get into it, and I get a call from the guy or the girl every once in a while. And
I had a great conversation with a guy. It was actually recorded, and I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying. His name's Larry Stovacek. He used to be the head of purchasing at Clark, and Clark, say what you want about them. I think they're a really, really well-run business, and pretty hard to argue their results. And Larry has, I think way, way, way more supporters and fans out there in the community that he has detractors, and I think he really set a pretty solid standard of what you'd see. And I think he invested a ton of his time and energy in building real relationships, rapport, communication channels with subcontractors, because this is a game, this industry of like, who, just because he was the right contractor on the last project like this doesn't mean he's the right contractor on this job.
It is true.
That PM that did that job may not be available. That foreman that did that job may not be available. Like, I need the inside scoop, man, and I need to be able to talk to these guys. So the procurement person doesn't need to be just looking at numbers and then looking at like, okay, they passed this matrix internally, and all that stuff is important, but they need to be able to pick up the phone and be like, hey, Matt, who's going to run this? Hey, can we get Jamie on this job? Because if we can't get Jamie on this job, I don't know that I want you.
Yeah.
Right. And they need to be able to have that kind of conversation.
And those kinds of professional conversations happening in construction really is a need. You're right.
Are you going to fight with me?
Yeah, I'm going to fight with you. I still want to agree with you. I think you're making good points. Yeah. That's like a good,
so where do you think it ought to happen?
I really like I think it should happen at the project executive or senior project manager level, depending on your business model and if you follow a project exec model or not. And with that said, I think that there should be, what I love about your purchaser models, I think there's got to be cross-departmental coordination between estimating / pre-construction as well as operations. We got to know the effort that this subcontractor put into the process early on, and how it potentially led to us getting to a point today where we were able to bid the job successfully at the budget that we set with the owner a year ago based on design development docs that showed nothing. And I got to know that they can deliver it in the field too. So
I'm okay. Like, we work, and you know this, we work with some contractors that I have, general contractors and CMs that I have encouraged to embrace that model. So it's not that I'm
Yeah.
opposed, but like, if you're asking, like, culturally, if your business will accept a centralized purchasing model, I can make a more compelling case for it. But what Matt's talking about, as long as you have that cross departmental communication, here's what I freaking hate.
Yeah.
What I hate is that the project manager or project executive on that end has their guy
Yeah.
in this trade, and their guy in that trade, he doesn't give a shit about pre-con. He's not helping. He's not doing any of the budgeting rounds or any of the, solution development and the value engineering and all that kind of stuff. He just shows up on bid day, calls his buddy and says, "Where do I need to be?" And his buddy tells him exactly where he needs to be, and he awards it. And the estimating department is left like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Right. And the field is like, "You're hitting me with this freaking guy again." And why? Because that project executive enjoys going to the basketball games with this dude.
Right.
That model, and look, by the way, side note, I can train a subcontractor how to sell to that guy until the cows come home. And so we got to deal with those realities. And I'm not saying it's evil. I'm just saying, if I'm a general contractor, it's not how I want it done in my company.
Well, and to that point though, I think that we train general or subcontractors to do that, except to do every single thing that actually makes them better and different on the front end. Like while you could teach somebody,
you got to be able to win both.
That, like, while I do think you could easily teach somebody that how to go get just the basketball game person, that's not what you do teach. What you teach is like, go be better and different. Promise to be better and different to people that actually will appreciate your betterness and differentness. And
make sure you take that guy to the basketball game, because if you don't, you're not going to be his guy.
Right.
But I agree with that, and I will tell you that there is a fundamental, like, if you're that guy's buddy, he'll tell you where you need to be. He'll give you the information you need to get low, but you're not going to get paid a penny more. Yeah. If you're better and you're that guy's buddy, you're going to have the information and you're going to be able to get more. And at the end of the day, getting more is, I think, the differentiator between. I mean, I interviewed a guy on the Morning Huddle this morning, who's the president of EDA construction or contractors. Yeah, EDA contractors, and really, obviously, like, this great place to work, really well run business, and all that kind of stuff. Very, very cool guy to talk to. And I said, I'm going to make a prediction. You're priced competitively, but near the top of your market. And he goes, absolutely. And I said, yeah, there's a correlation here. Yeah. And I write about it in the book, is that, there's the sweet spot, of pricing in the market, which is, competitive. And the difference, well-built contractors, the ones that I write about, the top 2%, they're priced at the top of the sweet spot. Why? Because they're actually different and they are actually better. And when they have to get low because the market changes, they can. You know why? Because they have a pile of freaking cash. Yeah. That's why. Yep. Anyway, so fun. Really thanks for the fight. Yeah, good. I disagree with you, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. No, I actually think I would give it to you, because the thought that I'm having is, like, I think a procurement or purchasing agent or whatever, I think that there's inherently with that role more training and development that goes into building responsible relationships than there are potentially.
I like the ability to specialize.
Yeah, and I think that that's an interesting point. So,
here's my point. Buying is so central to running a general contracting or construction management business. On any job, you're buying 30, 40, 60, 80 different, packages, right? To seriously, I mean, it's crazy. And then you're going to do how many deals a year and, like, all that type of stuff. This is not something that, like, Bill should be doing in addition to his regular job. Yeah. That's, I think, by itself. Man, I just made another argument.
I'm actually, the reason why I was laughing a second ago, if you could hear me, is because I'm, like, frustrated. I'm feeling very upset about the fact that, like, I felt very strongly about the way that you should buy for a long time. And I'm not just saying that. Like, I'm feeling very frustrated about the fact that your points are so well made. So let's, again, sweep that under the rug and keep moving on. So
feel the feeling.
Yeah. Let's just, forget about it. It never happened. I'm not going to ever listen to this podcast again. And Chad, what are you reading right now?
I'm actually reading a classic history book by David McCullough, 1776. Oh. I am loving the book. I find I want to share two things about this. One is that I did not realize how absolutely, completely impossible it was for America to win that war.
Wow.
It was impossible.
Wow.
And when you just the first half of 1776, you're basically like, we're not going to make it, boys.
You know how it turned out, and you're still like, no way.
We're not going to make
Yeah,
it.
right.
We're not going to. There's no way this is going to happen. And you know, Washington is so deeply flawed, and that's a beautiful thing, which I think for a leadership, you know, because that's what I'm always learn. I love anyway. I think history teaches us on so many different levels, and on a personal level. As a leader, watching Washington be so deeply flawed and indecisive and afraid and those types of things made me feel really good. To see that, you know, kind of struggle in motion. And this is not just like an author's opinion. These are his diary entries. These are you know, these are his letters, you know, like that kind of stuff. It's powerful.
Yeah.
It's really, really powerful. And so there's that I want to share. And then the other thing I want to share is that there's something incredibly calming for me when it comes to reading history. And that thing is particularly rough history, like scary history, like oh my God, we're gonna lose the war history. Is that shit already happened? And I don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, yeah, right.
And I realize that I gravitate to history when I'm stressed. Yeah. And I'm experiencing a lot of stress right now in our business. Good stress, but like holy shit, we're spending a lot of money stress, you know, and like we're growing and are you sure we're doing the right stuff? You know, and like second guessing and all that kind of stuff. And reading this book about, you know, odds stacked against people in history and this and all the brutal stuff that they had to endure and you know all those types of things is calming, you know, because of exactly what you said. I already know how this ends.
Yeah.
And I don't need to worry about stuff that happened in the past. It helps me to sleep really well.
That is awesome. That makes me very, very happy to hear all of that stuff.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that is awesome.
What are you reading, buddy?
I am reading a couple of different things, but I just started one that was exciting to me that I'm not far enough in to really even give a full like assessment of what I think it's about yet. But it's a book called The Goal: A Process of Ongoing Improvement by Eli Goldratt. You ever read this? Do you know this book?
Don't know it.
It's written in the Lencioni style of like a fable type of situation. But I'm excited and I'll do my best to remember updating the listeners the next time that we come back here, because it's about a manufacturing plant and the trials and tribulations that the person that's running this plant is going through with making money and upholding delivery dates and making order timelines and all this different stuff. And while it's manufacturing and not construction, it is just so gosh darn relatable to our industry. And I think the more that we can find books and the direction that it's going that I just haven't quite gotten to yet is all about how this manufacturing leader is going to rework the entire process so that there is like all these bottlenecks are fixed and that there's a more efficient process and that they're constantly improving, which, you know, if you pay attention to any of the stuff about like, you know, about from Deming or the Toyota system of management and all that stuff, it's just really interesting stuff about how you can be better. There's one great story that apparently like Ford executives got to go in and see Toyota like building a car or something, and this was years ago, and one of the executives said like, hey, how come when the door got put on you didn't take a rubber mallet and make sure that it was all the way, you know, locked into the joint? And the person from Toyota said, because we're already certain that it's locked in.
Why would we do that?
Why would we do that? And so I'm really excited to get more into the meat of it, but I think any book that's in our world of blue collar improvement and business improvement and all that stuff,
building stuff,
cool. Yeah, exactly. Construction just happens to be custom manufacturing at somebody else's site, which makes it a heck of a lot harder.
Super difficult.
Because it's nice when it's in your shop and you can control the narrative and all that stuff. So a lot harder in the construction world, but still really good, relevant stuff. So.
Matt, this show is about an hour.
We are really, really good at that.
I feel like it's
Really
actually
good.
awkwardly good. Like we're consistent. You know what? We've had some 40-minuters in there or
And
something
like,
along those
don't
lines.
lie, we've had some 110s too. Hour 10 guys.
I don't know.
So we can get excited.
Probably on you.
Yeah, probably.
I know I didn't make that mistake. It's got to be your mistake to make. Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff.
This was a lot of fun.
So much fun.
I look forward to the next one.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening.
Please keep coming back.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.